Hi, this is Eric Galvez. Welcome to the Disability Guerrillas Leaders of the Resistance podcast. I've got a very special guest today. His name is Scott Capozza, and I've had the pleasure of speaking with him at the Physical Therapy Conference, the annual conference called CSM. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce Scott, and he'll tell us a little bit about his story. So I'm gonna bring Scott in, right? How you doing, Scott?
Hey Eric, it's always good to see you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on the podcast. This is great. This is I'm so happy that you're doing this. I think this is a great way to really kind of get the word out and really again try to promote advocacy for for all of us, whether we're cancer survivors like you and I, or for anybody who's struggling with any kind of a disability, to kind of help them find their voice. So this is great.
Oh, thanks. Well, actually, Scott, can you tell us a little bit about your story? Like, you've got a very unique perspective on things, I think.
Yeah, yeah, thanks. So yeah, Eric, you and I actually have a lot in common in that we're both physical therapists, and I know you had started your career, when you faced your cancer diagnosis, and I was actually still in physical therapy school when I was diagnosed with stage 2 testicular cancer, and I had a couple of surgeries, and then I had to undergo chemotherapy, and the whole time, like, there was never a time that I more wanted to be in class, because if given the option between being in a hospital bed or being in biomechanics lab, I was going to choose biomechanics lab, 10 out of 10 times there. Um, so that was one of my early struggles, was trying to, kind of come to grab, come to grips with, being a young adult, being a 22, 23-year old, and, all of a sudden, having this cancer diagnosis thrown at me. So I was able to finish physical therapy school, got my degree, got licensed, and but I definitely was not. Well, two things, Eric. I mean, and you know this, that our profession, what we do as physical therapists, especially in the oncology world, you know, when I was diagnosed 27 years ago, it really wasn't a thing. But even if it was a thing, even if it was a career option, when you and I graduated PT school, um, I was definitely not in the headspace. I needed separation from my diagnosis, so I actually became a pediatric physical therapist. I work with kids, primarily in the school setting. Also some birth to three, and even some aquatic therapy. I really just did not want any kind of association with anything. Um, so it took time, through over several years of kind of distance from the initial diagnosis, and time and distance from my active treatment, and meeting other cancer survivors also,
Yeah.
that I really started to realize that we kind of have almost like an obligation here. If we survived our disease, or if we're living, with no evidence of disease, then we should be doing something about that, actually. Um, and so I started volunteering, kind of very simply, on kind of like the local level, with different organizations, different walks, and that kind of thing. Um, and it kind of morphed into a couple other things, where I eventually was at a charity bike ride, raising money for our local cancer center, because they were looking to develop their first cancer survivorship clinic. And this was kind of a revolutionary idea back then. 20 years ago, there was no true definition as to what cancer survivorship is. And so, by dumb luck or divine intervention or both, I ended up at that bike ride. I met the medical director who was in charge of starting this clinic, and he said, "Yeah, I know that the needs of cancer survivors are complex, and we can't just do it, from the medical aspect. The needs of the cancer survivors are diverse, and we need to also include a social worker to address all of their psychosocial and emotional concerns and the fear of recurrence and all of that. We need a dietitian. Our survivors need to know what to eat. They want to know how to eat properly after their cancer diagnosis, and especially now, there's so much misinformation that's out there on social media, and it can be very confusing for our cancer survivors to know what's actually legitimate and what's not. So we started with a dietitian, and that dietitian has been able to weed through all the misinformation that's out there and does not promote diets and does not promote supplements or anything like that. You can really eat well, by making healthy choices. And the last component of that survivorship clinic, he said, I need a PT. I know patients are fatigued, they're tired, they have range of motion issues, they have neuropathy, they have mobility issues. And so, I can't, me as a physician, I can't address all those concerns and those questions. So I need a PT to be able to answer all those. And so I said, sure, I'll do that one day a week. And I did that per diem for over 12 years. And then I really started realizing there's more that can be done here. And so I eventually went to my hospital and said, we need to build an actual oncology program. And so I became our hospital's first dedicated PT to oncology rehab. That coincided with me getting the board certification in oncology physical therapy back in 2019, and so it's really kind of gone from one thing to the next. Um, so so that's where I am now. So professionally now, again, I'm a full-time oncology physical therapist. I split my time between outpatient oncology PT and survivorship care. So the things that we do to try to raise our voices as survivors, but also to be able to advocate for everybody, it has been a really unique journey up to this point.
Yeah, actually, Scott, so can I ask you, when you were going through everything as a survivor, was physical therapy even an option for you, or like, did you stay active?
Eric, that is a fantastic question, and I use that. I want to use that question as a teaching moment just to show like where we are now compared to where we were back then. Um, Noting that we still have work to do here, but no, at
Yeah.
no point during my cancer active treatment was I ever offered physical therapy. I was I had two surgeries. My second surgery, I was hospitalized for a month. I was on bed rest for 2 weeks. I had an NG tube. I had a chest tube. They wouldn't let me eat, so I was getting TPN, total parietal nutrition. You want to know, Eric? I don't know. I don't know if you remember me telling you this. You remember? You know who actually got me up walking and moving while I was in the hospital?
I don't think you told me that
My
story.
friends,
Yeah.
my friends, my classmates, my PT classmates
Yeah.
came to the
Okay.
hospital and visited me. And my friend Marissa found a random walker out in the hallway somewhere, stole it, and grabbed it and said, "Let's go for a walk."
Yeah.
And so it was my classmates and my friends that got me moving in PT. Um, so no, never offered PT when I was in the hospital. And then fast forward to when I needed to get chemotherapy. I met with my oncologist, and he said, these are the drugs you're gonna have, and these are all the side effects you're gonna have. Do you have any questions? And I said, yeah. Can I run while I'm on chemo?
Hmm.
I had been a cross country runner and track runner. I
Yeah.
competed at the collegiate level. I had literally run a marathon a month before I was diagnosed. So running was part of like how I identified myself.
Okay.
And again, in 1999, we didn't have the research, we didn't have the evidence at that point. And so he said, I don't know. Plus,
Yeah.
again, I'm the youngest one in the chemo room by 30 years.
Hmm.
So nobody else is asking him that question. And so he said, I guess you can, just don't train for any marathons. And so I had to figure it out on my own. I had to figure out the ups and downs,
Yeah.
the roller coasters of chemotherapy. The days that I would feel good, I would go for a run. And then when nadir hit and I had no energy and I couldn't get off the couch, I said, okay, well, today's not going to be a day that I run. But I had to figure that all out on my own. I didn't have any direction for that.
Yeah.
I remember correctly. I remember you said that I think your friends helped you also, like as part of your recovery too.
Yeah. Yeah, like one of the big things for me was that I wanted to participate in a 5K walk after my surgery. This was like I think 5 or 6 months after I had my surgery. Like I wanted to participate in a charity walk, and
Mm,
I had a bunch of people with me. We had I think like 15 to 20 people walking with me, but yeah, basically walk arm in arm with people for the majority of it, but it took like I think 3 or 4 hours. So, but I'm very grateful for the support I had as a young adult brain tumor
mm,
survivor. So, yeah, again,
yeah,
the friend
great.
support system is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And again, we talked a little bit about this, when we presented together. There's so much, especially for the young adult who's diagnosed with cancer, there's that fear of missing out. And so, yeah, and, young adults can feel isolated, especially if they're missing any kind of major milestones, again, college graduations, or if they're missing, like friends' weddings, that kind of stuff. Like even like, getting your first apartment and all that kind of stuff. Like, you know, all those like major milestones that happen in your 20s and your 30s, those can all potentially be delayed, or impacted in some way. So, to know who your people are, is really important because you do need that support.
Yeah, so actually, I'm gonna kind of change gears a little bit here, but I did want to ask you. So, like, what exactly are you doing now?
Um, I'm doing a few things. I'm having a hard time saying no to things is part of the problem, but um, but but this year in 2025, I did a cool thing. Actually, I did in the month of June. I did two cool things. Um, I took my lived experience and I combined it with my professional hat. And I actually served as a patient advocate.
Hmm,
Um, One was at the American Society of Clinical Oncology's annual meeting. So basically, it's like the oncologist version of CSM for us, right?
okay.
And you know how many people go to CSM, like 15, 16,000 people. Well, there was like 44,000 people that went to this meeting, so it's ginormous. Um, and I was on a panel with three doctors, and they were presenting, a couple of different cases, but they wanted me there because they wanted the patient voice. They wanted to look at me, they turned to me and they said, what's going through your mind when this is happening, when the doctor is telling you this? Um, and there was a point that was, they asked me a question about, um, surveillance. When, if you move to, surveillance, you move to like long-term survivorship. And I said that surveillance can actually be a scary word
Yeah,
for a lot of people, because that means that all of a sudden their safety net's not really there anymore.
yeah,
Um, that it's, for better or worse, if you're in treatment, you have all these doctor's appointments, you've got the nurses checking on you, and people are checking your lab values, and people are checking, with the scans and everything else like that. And then they say, oh, okay, well, you're no evidence of disease. We'll see you in 6 months. And so what do you do in that situation? And that can be really scary to say, well, what am I supposed to do now? Um, so that was my point on that panel. That was one of the points that I made, is like, don't automatically assume that when you say, oh yeah, we're moving to surveillance, that's a great thing. The patient may not interpret it that way. So that was really incredible to be on that stage at that meeting,
Mhm.
um, speaking as more as a survivor, as the patient advocate. And then later in the month, I was at the mosque annual meeting, which is the multi association society for cancer care, and it's a great conference because it's all about supportive care in cancer. It's not necessarily about the newest drugs. It's not necessarily about the newest like clinical trials, but it's more about rehab and nutrition and psychosocial support, and that
So
sort of thing.
is that geared towards patients or is that geared towards the medical professional?
It's great question. It is geared towards medical professionals, but they want medical professionals there, talking about what are they doing to support our cancer population, um, and again, I got asked to be on a patient panel, a patient advocate panel, where there was four of us, and we each had about 10 minutes to kind of talk about the different areas of concern, um, and it was nice because there was myself and there was another young adult survivor who spoke, and she and I were both no evidence of disease at this point, and then there was a woman with a history of breast cancer. She was actually from Germany, um, and she's stage 4. She's metastatic. She is still living with with her disease, and she is still in treatment. And so that's what she talked about. She said, "I don't like the word survivor because I'm still living it. I'm not done. I'm still in treatment." Um, you know, and so like collectively, we all kind of made the point to say, "Listen, we may look okay on the outside, but you have no idea what's going on the inside."
Yep.
So for her, like she is still battling breast cancer. It's still in her. And she still has to go get infusions every couple of weeks to manage that. So um that was a great honor to be able to do that. Um and so I think it's a kind of a cool thing now that we're able to kind of and just like you are with this platform that you've got here and with the disability gorillas, like to be able to take something that wasn't great and then kind of flip it, so that we can try to help advocate for the person who's diagnosed tomorrow, right? So that's kind of, I think that's what we're doing here.
Actually, I did want to ask you, like, I mean, how prevalent do you think disability is in cancer survivorship or oncology survivorship?
Yeah, Eric, that's a great question. I actually think it's underreported,
Yeah.
to be honest with you. I mean, so flipping back to being, as a professional, as a physical therapist who works with these patients, I have patients who are on disability because they are fatigued. They might have, they might have had, a variety of different surgeries, which uh, makes it unable for them to work. They might still have neuropathy, and they had a job, r- just for example, like the person who was a FedEx driver, right? But now that person has severe neuropathy in their feet and they can't drive. Well, that person's out of work now.
Yeah.
So, so these are real things. Like, the side effects, the adverse effects of cancer treatment can have significant impact on our patients, and it can lead to our patients, needing short-term disability, maybe needing long-term disability. So I actually think it's underreported, to be honest
Yeah,
with you.
I agree. I agree. Like I know with especially I never had chemotherapy, but I know a lot of the side effects of therapy are a lot of physical impairments. So I mean, it just makes sense that oncology patients be kind of lumped in with the disability patients as well, because I mean there's
Mhm.
a lot of similarities there.
Yeah, I would agree. And again, depending on where the tumor was and the type of surgery, and all of that. So there's so much that, which is why rehab is such an important piece to try to get them, as close back to where they're going to be as possible. But if that's not going to happen, then we have to make sure that that we have all those safety nets in place, that and we maybe have that conversation. We might ever, as PTs, we might be the ones that maybe initiates
Yeah.
that
I
conversation.
totally agree with you there.
Yeah,
That's a very
and
good point.
yeah, and it's a tough conversation to have,
Yeah.
but sometimes, like, we might be the ones that are in the position to say, listen, like, we've been working on these things for a while, and we're not getting to your goals, we're not obtaining your goals, and so maybe this is a time to consider that, and it's not, you know, but I think we have to be true to our patients and have those conversations with them, because if we don't, then I feel that that's a huge disservice to them.
One thing that really stuck out with me is I follow you on a lot of the social media platforms. You made some sort of announcement that exercise is actually good for cancer patients. Can you
Hmm.
kind of expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. So, I mean, we've been saying that for years. And again, anecdotally for me, like, I knew that exercise was good for me. Like, I knew I needed to run while I was in chemo because I needed to feel that I was in charge. I needed to feel like I was beating the cancer and the cancer was not beating me. So I probably needed it just as much mental
Yeah.
as I did physical. Um, but we haven't had, and we've been close. Like, the researchers, they've been close. They've been, like, nibbling at it and getting close to getting the evidence that shows that yes, that exercise and rehab can be beneficial. And we've had a lot of research that shows that it helps mitigate the adverse effects of cancer, but we haven't really seen anything that is, nothing strong to
Right.
show that exercise and rehab can actually be a tool to treat cancer. Exercise as itself can treat cancer, until that ASCO meeting that I was at. A group of researchers out of Canada had just, like, simultaneously published in the New England Journal of Medicine this groundbreaking study. It had taken, like, 15 years of work. They followed almost 900 patients, and it was patients who had stage 2 or stage 3 colon cancer. And they had their exercise group and they had their usual care group, which means no exercise. They just get a piece of paper, say, go exercise. But the intervention group actually worked with PTs and exercise physiologists, and they worked with them twice a month for an entire year. And then they still had a checkpoint for year 2 and year 3. They still had a monthly check-in. So over the course of 3 years, there was somebody that was checking in on these patients, even when they were done with active treatment, to make sure that they were keeping up with their exercises and that sort of thing. And what they found was that by being able to exercise, these patients reduce their risk of recurrence by 37%,
Yeah.
one third
Yeah.
the risk of recurrence
That's
by exercising.
yeah.
The exercise group reduced their risk of recurrence by one third. And even better, they looked at all the data, they put it all together, and they looked at it and they said that um, patients who were able to exercise, they decreased their risk of death by like 27-28%.
Yeah.
And it gets better. There's a cherry on top. There's a cherry on top. They compared the exercise intervention to oxaliplatin. Oxaliplatin is a nasty chemotherapy drug that they give for patients with colorectal cancer. That is the one that causes the neuropathy, causes the cold sensitivity. And they found that patients who exercised had a better overall survival rate than patients who were on oxaliplatin.
Hmm.
So that's it. That's the holy grail. we have shown, this study showed that exercise is better than chemotherapy.
Yeah. That's
Now,
yeah.
granted, it's one population. They looked at one very specific drug. Um, but holy cow, that's what we've been looking for all these years. And so
Yeah.
now that's the evidence. That study showed that exercise is better than chemotherapy.
Yeah. That's
Now, granted,
yeah.
granted, it's one population. They looked at one very specific drug. Um, but holy cow, that's what we've been looking for all these years. And so
Yeah.
now that's the evidence that exercise is better than chemo.
Yep. And you said there was like 900 participants in it?
There was 900 participants, so it was a
That's
strong study, right?
yeah.
It wasn't like a little pilot study with 25
Yeah.
people. This was almost 900 people out of Canada, across Canada, so across the different provinces of Canada. I think they also had researchers from Australia involved with it too. So it was actually a multinational study. And again, it wasn't like they followed the patients for 12 weeks and that was it. They followed them for 3 years.
That's awesome.
So
Yeah.
that's huge.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well,
So
thank you for sharing that. That's awesome news. I
yeah.
love hearing that. Now, I'm gonna change gears a little bit here. Now, one of the things that the Disability Gorillas likes to do is kind of humanize everything. So, I'm gonna put you on the hot seat, and we're gonna ask you some
Uh-oh.
pretty irreverent questions. So, I hope you're ready. We're gonna kind of get into something that's a little bit different here. What is your theme song?
My theme song?
Your personal theme song?
You mean like my walk-up song? Like if I was
Yeah,
playing baseball and like my walk-up song, or like if I was in WWE,
exactly.
like my intro song?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
your intro song.
Oh, that's an easy one. That's
Okay.
easy. LL Cool J. Mama said knock you out.
Okay. All right. That's a good one. All right. So next question here is, who is your personal hero or heroes?
Well, one would be my great grandfather.
Okay.
My great grandfather. He immigrated, from Italy. Back in the early 20th century. And he actually his story actually got written up in our local newspaper. He came to America like 1914. He talked about what it was like to see the Statue of Liberty,
That's
and to go through Ellis Island and everything. And, I just think how incredible that must have been to come to some place where he did not know the language and he had no money. And he started in New York City and he kind of eventually like worked his way up into Connecticut. Very talented guy too. Like he was a musician. He built his own banjos. Um, he was a band leader. I definitely did not get any of those genes. I did not get any of those musical genes, but I just think that somebody who does that just kind of takes that leap of faith.
yeah.
Is kind of a hero to me. And I would also say too that again my the patients that I get to work with every day are my heroes because they're the reason why I go to work every day, and they're the reasons why why we do what we do, why I want to advocate for them. So yeah, I would say my patients
Okay.
as well.
Well, next question here is, like, what do you like to do in your free time?
Ah, so we like to bike ride, and so my kids all love to ride. My older son's in a mountain bike club. So and especially in the summer, we love to go out riding together. I if I if, my probably my proudest moment as a father is that my kids will publicly shame any bike rider they see without a helmet on.
Oh, okay. Very
Like,
cool.
my daughter must have been like 4 or 5, and like we're driving, and like somebody was riding their bike, and didn't have their helmet. She like yelled out the window. She said, "That's not safety first."
Yeah. Okay,
I'm like,
that's all.
okay, I'm doing something right as a father. So anyway, so we like to bike ride. As we're taping this now, like my free time has been spent up by actually getting finally. I'm getting my DPT.
Okay.
Um, so I don't have whole lot of free time now, but I
Okay.
will once I'm done with my program.
Okay. Next question here. We're gonna go back for this one. What is the Pythagorean theorem?
Oh, it's
Yeah, yeah.
is that
You remember?
is that x squared plus y squared equals z squared?
A squared plus b squared equals c squared, which is the same thing.
Oh,
But
okay.
do you know what it measures? Do you remember?
It's something with like pre-algebra or
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
been a few years.
Yeah. Yeah. It actually the length of any side of a right triangle. You get to know the length of the other two sides. So
Mm.
yeah, it's just recording their circumference
Oh, so
together.
it's more geometry. Okay, all right. Again,
Exactly. Like I
it's been
said,
a few
we're going
years.
back. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Next question here is: are you
coffee or
a
tea?
coffee or a tea guy?
No, I'm a coffee guy. I'm definitely a coffee guy. And especially being from New England, like gotta have my iced coffee. So
Okay. Iced coffee. Oh wow. Okay.
yeah,
Cool.
as that New Englanders, we have iced coffee year round. That's just how we're wired.
Interesting. I didn't know that. Wow. Okay.
Yep.
Next question. What's your favorite website?
Um, my favorite website. Um, I probably ESPN. Every morning I log on and I watch the day before's part of the interruption.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'll log on to ESPN in the morning, so that way I can check my scores and check the box scores. But then I also watch PTI every morning when I'm having breakfast.
Just kind of cool. So, next question here is: what is the best movie snack?
Ooh, best movie snack. Well, for me, I'm a chocoholic. I fully admit I'm a chocoholic. So I'm gonna go with like classic M&Ms.
Okay. Okay. Next question here: magic. Is it cool or not cool?
I mean, it's not. I don't know. I know people do magic, and I know people like magic. It's just not for me.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Okay. Next question. Test your knowledge. What is the capital of South Dakota?
Bismarck.
It's Pierre.
So
Close.
close.
Okay. Now, next question here is: what is your favorite childhood memory?
Um, Favorite childhood memory. Um, hmm. Oh, I don't know. I mean, I remember. I mean, I don't know that it was necessarily one memory, but I my grandparents belonged to this like beach club thing, and so like that's my earliest memory of life is like being on the beach, and so like and that's where I would spend my summers, and then when I was like 15, 16, I became the beach boy, and like so I get down to the beach early and clean up the clubhouse and like rake the seaweed off the sand and all that kind of stuff. Um, but I have such fond memories of just and again, my grandparents were there and all their friends were there, and so I just those were good memories, just like hanging out on the beach with my grandparents and just being by the water.
Okay, cool. Now, do you prefer watching movies or TV shows?
By movies, do you mean going to the movie theater or streaming them?
Streaming or going to the movie theater, whichever.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely was in a routine, and I had a buddy of mine where we would have a mandate anytime one of the new Marvel movies came out or when the Star Wars movies came out because his wife didn't want to go and my wife didn't want to go, so we had a mandate.
Okay. Okay. Very cool.
So we saw, Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and all that, and Avengers Endgame and all that kind of stuff. So we wanted to see those. Obviously, we wanted to see those in the theater for the
Yeah.
experience. Um, but I think now mostly I'm streaming. I'm mostly like again I'm kind of a Star Wars geek and like a Marvel geek, so like I'll stream all those shows. I just watched Captain America: Brave New World, and I watched the new season of Daredevil earlier this year. So I guess I go back and forth.
Okay. Very cool. All right. Next question here is dogs or cats?
Oh, see, now that's tough because I would typically say I'm a dog person. However, we now own a cat. You probably heard the cat meowing in the background a little while ago. So, while I would say dog person, I'm not going to say that too loud so that the cat doesn't claw my eyes out tonight.
Okay. All right. Next question here. Are you more about uh, eating out or dining in?
I prefer going out. I like going out, like trying new things. I like the experience. Try to like, see what, see what's new. Um, so I would prefer, of course, it gets expensive after a while, so then
Yeah.
it's probably makes more sense to um, but I also live in a town. I live in a very small town, so we can't really like order in like, you know, we can get DoorDash, but I mean, it's not the easiest thing.
Yeah.
It's not like we live in like a big town, or a big city or anything like that. So it's probably, or, it's either eat out or I pick something up and I bring it home.
Okay. That's a good point. Okay. All right. I've got three more questions here.
All right.
Now, where's your favorite place to travel?
Oh, I love travel. Um, I want to take over Rick Steves' job, and just like travel around the world and write books about it. Like, wouldn't that be an amazing
That would be
job to
great.
have, right?
Yeah.
I actually thought at one point, like, how cool would it be to be a photographer for National Geographic, right? Like, you get to take pictures of the penguins in Antarctica, and like all the things. Like that would be so cool. Um, but I'm gonna try to focus that down and say try to focus on America and focus on our national parks. Um, you know, our national parks are so diverse. Um, you know, uh, we went to Olympic National Park in Washington a couple years ago, and even within Olympic National Park itself, you've got the shoreline. So you've got the salty air,
Yeah.
in your lungs, and you can put your feet in the sand and everything. But then there's another part of the park where you're at 8,000 feet, and you've
Yeah.
got snow-covered mountains there. But there's also another part of Olympic National Park that's lower, and it's almost a rainforest type of setting of an environment there. So that's even just within one park.
Yeah. Wow.
Um, so I think that our national parks are a treasure. And we've been to a couple. We've started taking the kids to the national parks because I want them to appreciate the beauty of them and how we really do need to try to preserve our natural lands. So I would say collectively the 63 national parks.
Okay. Cool. Got two more questions here. This one's kind of a fun one. Tell us something we didn't know. Anything,
Something you don't know about me.
or people just don't know in general.
Yeah. Well, it's okay. So, you've been referencing that I post things on social media, and you and we presented together at a national conference. But I used to be an introvert.
Really? Okay.
I was super shy. Like, I was so shy in high school. And I couldn't get out of my own way. Like I could never get the confidence, to speak and to do that kind of thing. So I'm not always naturally, I'm not a natural extrovert, so again, you see the things, that I post now, but that was not me when I was young. All right.
Um, right. Any wise words of advice for cancer survivors or patients with disabilities, or just in
Mhm.
general? Any wise words of advice?
Yeah, I would say, maybe to tie into that last point about, being an introvert versus an extrovert, like, it's okay to advocate for yourself. Ask the questions. Have, if you can, have somebody come with you. Especially if you're in medical appointments and the doctor is giving you, you know, news, or talking about treatment protocols or anything like that. Like that's overwhelming. So you need a second set of eyes and ears to help hear all that, take some notes, record it, and so that way you can play it back and actually be able to process it afterwards. Um, I am also I tell my patients flat out, like, listen, if you don't like what you hear, it is absolutely your right as a patient to go get a second opinion. Do not be afraid. You're not going to hurt feelings because it's not about the hurt feelings of the physician. It's about your well being. So, absolutely, because I did that too. I got a second opinion. Ironically enough, because I was in school when I was diagnosed, ironically enough, I came to the place where I now work, Yale, to get a second opinion. So, it is absolutely your right as a patient, regardless of your diagnosis, or again, if you're trying to come to terms with work with a disability, like if you don't like what you hear, go get a second opinion. That's your right.
Yeah, that's very good advice. So, yeah, we're going to go ahead and end the interview here, Scott, but I really appreciate you participating in this. Like, I really want to humanize the whole uh, disability cancer experience. So, this was great.
Hmm.
So, again, I thank you for
Hmm.
this. And yeah, definitely keep an eye out because, like, I'll probably get more oncology therapists to do this. And yeah, it's just kind of cool to
Oh,
see the human side of the medical field. So this was great.
yeah, no, well, and thank you, Eric, and thank you for doing this because it is obviously so important.
Thank you
Okay.
so much.
All right, Eric. Hey, this is great. Always fun to talk with you, and yeah, hopefully I'll see you soon.
Okay. Yeah, you have a good night.
All right, you too.